of me doing the research, I said, you know what? For African American History Month, I'm gonna just do 28 days of Black food history. What I learned, I want to teach to everybody else. So that's exactly what I've been doing. And then the first week, Ian can tell you, because it's the first one I called with this idea. And I said, I want to host at the end of the year a Black culinary, just a food, family, have a great time. And I don't want everybody to be in food. I want it to be Black and I want it to be queer. And I wanted it to be people that I love. And I knew that people that are moving and shaking in the DMV area, paving ways for themselves and creating spaces for people behind them. All right? So please, Dion and Josh, would you please let us know what we're eating this evening?
This is lamb. Interestingly enough, nobody in my family really eats lamb except for my godmother, who is also like a very safe person for me. So it's interesting that, you know, that's one of the things I chose to cook. Also, there's cabbage and kale. There's no pork in anything that we eat, just in case anybody has that concern, in any of the vegetables that we cook.
Pork was a staple, but I know nowadays people don't eat pork, don't eat beef, so turkey is the safest meat to start cooking with. So I did the green beans with turkey neck. I do have pork ribs that I did, and the jerk teriyaki salmon, and the rice meatloaf.
And then I'm going to give Capri a moment to talk about the two cocktails that we were enjoying over at the next room.
So the first cocktail you all had was called Abundance. It's called Abundance for a reason. It had watermelon juice in it, which was, of course, what we are known to have stereotypically like as Black people like watermelon. People now to this day are shameful to say that they like watermelon as a Black person. So I want to reclaim our watermelon back, and I call this cocktail Abundance. The next cocktail that you all had, the third one with the clove and lavender syrup, was called Our Flowers, because we are all do our flowers at any moment, any time of the day. So that's why I created these cocktails really well.
Thank you, everybody. Please enjoy.
Honestly, I would say I developed an eating disorder to a certain extent. It was very much to the point where unless I was under the influence of marijuana, I didn't have an appetite, so I really didn't eat. And when I had to like come down to paying for me to get to work every day or me getting something to eat, then I'm looking at me getting to work every day versus eating. Yeah, you know. So I really started to neglect myself from food, and it was interesting because back then I used to work in restaurants, and so that was just like that was my job. I went to work in a restaurant. So it was very funny how as I've gotten older now and I've gained a lot more stability in my life, and truthfully, I know y'all probably were like, what? But this is the most I've weighed ever in my life. I've gained 20 pounds in like the past 20 years. I mean, like last year. And it's because I've been eating a lot more, you know? That's 8 lives! You know? And so it was more so just understanding the privilege behind food. I think that's more so my story with food, my connection with food.
And I literally only talk to my mom, and I don't have communication with my dad. He calls me, I don't answer the phone. Because every time my dad calls me, it's about either another sibling or he's trying to space fill the conversation where he hasn't accepted my truth. Me and my dad can't have a real conversation about the man I am today. And so I don't accept my dad. Me and my mom, we hang out, she accepts my friends, all of that. And so my mom is now who can get, she has access to me. And so everything's case by case. Like now I'm a grown ass man, and my dad was supposed to teach me how to be a man, but he didn't do it. I had to figure it out on my own. So he doesn't have access to me. Like you can't come in my life and now feel like you have something to say about anything I've created because you didn't step up and do the things you did. You've ignored my truth my entire life. And now I can walk and accept the people who accept who I am and walk with me. So it's like, it's all case by case. Like you just have to walk or just realize what makes you most comfortable in life. Because regardless of who they are, if it doesn't create a comfortable space for you, it's not meant for you.
So I grew up in a very southern Baptist home. We were the church kids, like at church 6 out of 7 days a week.
Yes.
We were on the usher board,
Sleeping on the pews.
the youth choir, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
And so me coming out immediately was a threat to their religion, a attack on what they felt that they tried to pour into me. And so there was a period of estrangement where I did not speak to my parents, which was incredibly hard. We moved around a lot as a kid, and so my mom was my best friend up until like 9th grade. Literally the one person that I came home and debriefed everything that was going on in my life. And having to push that space of like, I'm not wrong. Like, period. Me as a human, I'm not wrong. I'm not asking you to change your religious beliefs. Continue to believe that homosexuality is a sin, but don't stop seeing me as your child.
Food was my first strikeout as independence because I hated soul food. I hated it. I did not like it from the onset. And in the black community, I was considered to be skinny. And so they had the notion that Jonte was afraid of food because I wouldn't eat it. Like, I liked food, I just didn't like what you was putting in front of me. Okay. So that was my first strike as I did not like soul food. I just couldn't. And that was my first strike as being independent, was with the food. And I had to learn how to cook food that I like and that do the food that I love. So when it came time for me to come out, which I really hate that term of coming out, my family didn't like it. But I'm like you. I was like, this is not asking for your permission. This is what it is. Yes, and going back to the food, it gave me the courage to say, this is who I am. If you like it or not, that's your journey. And I'm not responsible for your happiness. And that all started with the food. You know, so thank you all for your stories. And I really like that.
I didn't have this growing up. I didn't have my mother cooking in the kitchen. Like, if the family cooked, it was my father, and it was Thanksgiving. But we went out to eat. So when I said I felt more like a child in this space, I'm younger in age, you know, so like these energies right now are like really comforting, if that makes any sense, and beautiful, and just hearing you all just speak so far has been great. But this is something that I've always admired, right? I've had this going to my grandmother's house, uncles and aunts, so I've seen this, but it was never like a part of me growing up. So every time I'm around it, it just feels like I like to call learning more of my black journey, you know, and like what that means. And like, I say that also because my parents weren't really pro-black. Like, my mom was mad that I went to HBCU and different things like that. So it's like, this has been a lot of learning. And me being proud of my blackness has now brought my mother to be more proud of her blackness. And so,
Teach one! Come on!
Huge. So this is just real nice.
It felt good to me because while my mother thought I didn't pick up on those recipes and those cooking skills, I did. And so, you know, now when holidays come, my house is Big Momma's house, so that's why my pronouns included mother, because everybody comes to my house. I cook way too much food, and we are able to, you know, eat and enjoy and still have that family feeling. We're chosen family,
yes,
which is very important because just to go off of what my wife Tuck was saying, when we got married, my family was very against it. They did not attend. That was their own choice, but we still carried on. I'm biased, but I was a beautiful bride.
Yes, she did. You are gorgeous, bride.
We already know you.
I didn't know all about what it meant to be a trans person. You know, a lot of times in interviews, people would say, well, what do you think about like the call girls, the hookers, you know, people that deal with that in the trans community? And I was so like, you know, caught off guard because I'm like, I can't speak on these things. That's not my experience. And in fact, I feel like it was also kind of marginalizing for people in our community to say that's all I could have been. Started to tell people that we come from different levels, you know, that maybe you shouldn't always try and look down to look up. Like, is the fact that like you can just be who you are doing what you're doing. And as time has gone on, I've realized that like I am who I'm supposed to be.
And before I ask how your queerness showed up in these food stories, and you guys shared that part about, no, this is who I am, my fullness, and I'm going to tell you my full experience. And I'm going to tell you my food story. But then the following question after